Hey folks, Captain Kilt-Man here. How are you all? Hope you're doing very, very well. Just been out in the Mersey, dipping me line in the water. Oh yeah, tugging me rod and all that kind of stuff. And I hooked this. Looks lovely. Bit of salt and vinegar, get some chips next to it, bit of ketchup, laughing. If you're posh, bit of tartar sauce maybe. I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. Anyway, folks, how are you all? Hope you're doing very well. I haven't really been fishing. I know it smells really salty and I look kind of barnacled and briny, but no. In fact, this little display you see here has been at least partially erected for the last 7 days. Namely, that and that. Because I've been meaning to get this review of 1980's awesome Humanoids From The Deep from Roger Corman. I've been trying to get this video done for 7 days, pretty much. And that pesky thing known as real life has forever, ever pulled the plug in my canoe, and I've just blubbled down to the bottom and failed. So, hopefully, guys, keep your fingers crossed and stick your toe in the hole in my canoe, and let's see if this time we can keep it afloat. Yeah, hope you appreciate all this. I've been a fan of this movie since it came out. It was made in 1979, it came out in 1980 in America in a cut down version. It played a few festivals in Europe and the UK, brought the house down. It then got a release in the UK about a year later, so it took an 81. And I remember that release because I saw the trailers on TV and I was completely blown away by it. And many of you will know, because I've talked about it a lot, I used to get into the cinema for nothing. I'd see X-rated movies and all sorts of stuff that a young child of, I don't know, between 9, 10, 11 and 12 should not have been seeing. But I did. And I got to see this, fully uncut as well. Oh my God. And this was a tale, a fish tale, of humanoids from the deep, laying siege to a northern Californian fishing port, a little horrible shabby enclave of redneck bigoted fishermen who become victims of these amphibious men in big fishy monster suits with heads that don't look too dissimilar from that. They're kind of clearly derived from the creature from the Black Lagoon. Let's get that gill-man, in the corner of the room out of the way. This film is very, very clearly derived from the classic universal horror, Creature from the Black Lagoon, which was a sexualized horror film anyway, because that gill-man did not want to fuck the arse off Julie Adams, who's swimming in that Black Lagoon and he's swimming beneath her, mimicking her movements, fascinated by her form. Who can blame him? But in Roger Corman's eyes, well, if I'm going to have humanoids from the deep coming up and and I'm going to base it on that kind of thing, of fascination with females, I'm going to make it a bit more graphic and explicit. Yes, my humanoids are going to come up and they're going to kill the menfolk and they are going to use the womenfolk to procreate. Yes, to further the next stage of their evolutionary cycle. Yes, they're going to rape them. Now, Roger Corman, forget about those glorious, fantastically art designed and produced and directed Edgar Allan Poe adaptations with Vincent Price. Forget about them. That's a different thing that Roger Corman did. But Roger Corman is the king of sleazy quickies, sci-fi, horror, biker, surf stuff. He knew what sold. Drive-in movies, tits, blood, boobs, gore, nudity. That's what sold tickets. That's what made money. For very little initial outlay, you could make massive moolah from that. Exploitation. Now, before anyone leaps on the bandwagon, because especially in this day and age now, that kind of plot is really going to come a cropper, is it not? Fishmen coming out to rape women, kill the men. Yeah, and the film did have a lot of
campaigning against it because of that plot. But you've got to remember what genre is, and I am now preaching very much now. If you're still watching this, you are part of the converted, because you know what genre movies are. You know what horror movies are. You know what fantasy movies are. You know what everything about life is. We all want the female, and the female in jeopardy only makes the men become heroes to try and fight back. But the monsters go after the women in jeopardy, a damsel in distress. Yes, it's what puts your arse on the seat, makes you pay your money and sit there with your eyes on stalks, championing the hero, but also ogling the ladies. From the pictures of cavemen, fighting dinosaurs and stuff. Well, I know, cavemen never fought dinosaurs. Before you boffins come on to me and go, oh, that actually killed man. That didn't happen. So if you saw that on a cave painting, that would be fake. It'd be fake news. I know. The point is that since man began to tell tales, be it on cave paintings, be it in theatre, be it spoken, vocalised Greek tragedies, whatever the hell, women were always the focus of nastiness, and men were trying to fight to defend them or fight to get them. You know where I'm coming from. So, Humanoids From The Deep is exactly that. It's exactly that. And it makes no bones about it. It doesn't care. Roger Corman knew what sold. And yet, he has a woman direct this movie, Barbara Peters, who had worked with him before on a previous beach movie. She wouldn't work with him again after this because, and many of you know this, that what Roger Corman did, as Roger Corman does a lot, he and his second unit director, whose name I have now forgotten, but I will find it, James Spardellotti, we'll just call him James, second unit James, realised that, hang on a minute, we're making an exploitation flick, and we've got plenty of tension and mystery and eeriness, but where's the skin and where's the gore? Right, go back in and let's shoot some more stuff. So the film that Barbara Peters made, which did attract quite a good cast as well, which we'll come on to, was transformed. He would jettison elements of what she filmed and he'd incorporate these gore vignettes, these sex and blood little set pieces of attacks, tits and bums and just slashed up bits, which was not what she filmed. So she weren't happy about that. But if you look at the deleted scenes and the various releases, and I've got every release of it going, the theme of the movie, under her helmswomanship, was still the same. It was still the same thrust. These creatures were still going to go and do their thing. They were procreating with the women and they were killing the men. That was the idea. That was the whole plot of it. And she worked with that, and there was fights and there was violence, and she still filmed a lot of that. But these extra bits, they will stick out like a sore thumb. But they stick out more than the seams and the costumes do. The costumes, of which there were only 3, although in the film you will think that they're fighting a flotilla of these fishy fiends. But it's only 3. Like in Aliens, there was only ever 6 suits made in Aliens, and yet you thought they were fighting an army of xenomorphs. In this, very brilliantly filmed, at most, you've got 3 on screen at one time. 2 costumes designed by the great, soon to become legendary after this, and then especially coming at it with The Thing and The Howling. Rob Bottin, take a bow, designs the creature effects for this. And 2 of these suits were 2-piece, a head mask like that, and a bodysuit. But you also had another one where it was a full suit. And one of them could be adapted to have elongated arms like Mr. Tickle. But these suits are really, really good. They're genuinely good. They're creepy, the great big gaping maw, multiple fangs, the bulbous brains which are exposed, making them easy targets for a good bashing on the brain. But they look suitably green and icky and slimy. They've got tails. There's all sorts of ickiness on them and loads of seaweed. And they're good costumes for a film of this kind, which is definitely, it straddles that line from 60s, 70s, man in a costume, sort of monster movies to 80s where it had become far more prosthetics and animatronics. Something which Rob Bottin would learn just after this, working with Rick Baker on The Howling. And of course, now stop me if you've heard this story before. Oh, you can't. So just put up with it again. But damn those mice. They're getting big. It's that scientific meddling that my team upstairs have done to try and make the mice grow larger and faster so we can put them under the grill a bit quicker and get more meat off them. Aye. Because that's the theme of this movie. Rob Bottin would work with Rick Baker on The Howling to create a werewolf transformation like no other. But Rick Baker had already promised and sworn himself to work with John Landis if he ever got his long, mooted werewolf story off the ground. And finally, John Landis gets his movie off the ground, American Werewolf in London. But he's already working on The Howling for Joe Dante and Roger Corman as well. Hang on a minute. Yeah, Roger Corman was involved in this, wasn't he? Do you know what? All of a sudden I can't remember. He must have been in there somewhere. Can't remember now. But, so, Rick Baker has to leave to decamp to go and work for John Landis. But he has already trained and formulated a whole new technique for stretch show skin, stretch show hands, stretch show faces for the transformations in The Howling. But he's given all this knowledge and know-how and techniques to young Rob Bottin. Rob Bottin then makes the movie, gets the effects credit for it, and his film comes out before American Werewolf. And as I've said many times, I actually prefer the werewolves in The Howling to what you see in American Werewolf, although I love American Werewolf far more. But the Eddie Quist werewolf is just, oh my god, and that transformation is magnificent. But anyway. But Rob Bottin took those effects. Rob Bottin had already worked before Humanoids From The Deep for John Carpenter on The Fog. The marauding, leprous, ghouls and wraiths from beneath the sea, out in the waters by Spivey Point. He created them. He even plays their leprous captain, Blake, who's come back to Antonio Bay for his gold. He portrays Blake. Of course, he would cement his fame, his absolute, superstar nature in makeup design with The Thing, Total Recall, RoboCop, and so many others. Legend, he became a legend himself. But these are his effects in this movie, and it's great to go back and watch an early film of his. Speaking of early films of great geniuses, I'm playing James Horner. Yes, the late great James Horner delivered a score, one of his earliest scores for this movie, Humanoids From The Deep. He'd worked before on a Roger Corman production called Up From The Depths, but he'd done literally about 3 or 4 minutes of music on that. And that's a similar sort of movie as well, Creatures From The Depths and all that sort of stuff. And he'd done about 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes of music. A lot of it was tracked in, a lot of it was library music, but he still got a credit for that. Although this was the one that really began to do it for him. So, Noyo is a little enclave, Northern California, full of racist bigots going out to sea. The fishing industry there it's kind of on its last legs. So they've incorporated science. A scientific brigade led by the gorgeous Ann Turkel, ex-Mrs. Richard Harris, playing Dr. Susan Drake, who has found a way to genetically modify the salmon to make the salmon grow faster and much bigger. Yum yums. So, but an experimental batch of these salmon have somehow got out into the sea. They've been eaten by other maritime creatures, and they've also been mated with by other maritime creatures. And in a lightning quick evolutionary leap, they've created 6 or 7 foot tall humanoids from the deep, with gills and big exposed brains and claws and tails and all sorts of green slimy bits and bobs, with an insatiable sexual desire, and also a strong intention to dismember and disembowel menfolk. And this is what's happening. But into this already volatile mix, you've got a societal element too, which is what lifts this film beyond a lot of the typical standard Z grade or the lower half of a double bill sci-fi horror fantasy sort of offering, and you've got this societal observation about the Native Americans. Eddie Eagle, is it Eddie Eagle? Johnny Eagle, played by Anthony Pena, or Anthony Pena, because it was mispronounced, miswritten on his credits as Pena. And he plays this Indian who wants to try and keep their sacred lands away from the bigots, because these guys want this new cannery in there and they're messing with the ecology. Now, the new cannery is being totally championed by the late great Vic Morrow, who would die a couple of years later making The Twilight Zone, the movie, in that horribly infamous accident with the helicopter and the 2 Vietnamese children. And again, he's playing a racist bigot in that. And he plays Hank Slattery. Now, at some point during this, I'm going to get the name Slattery and the word cannery mixed up. I know I'm going to do it, because it's Hank Slattery who wants the cannery. And he's really fighting to get this done, because it's going to bring prosperity, it's going to bring jobs, it's going to bring money. They're all going to benefit. But the Native American contingent from Johnny Eagle doesn't like this. It's not a good thing. It's ruining the ecology. It's ruining their lands. It's disrupting the harmony. So you've got this confrontation. You've got this dilemma. And this is where the film fits in with many other things. Because critics, and it annoys me when they say this, and they say it all the time, that Humanoids From The Deep is a rip-off of Jaws, of Alien, and Piranha. Well, Piranha is a Roger Corman movie anyway. And let's remind ourselves of how Roger Corman started. His first movie pitch was for a film called Creature from the Ocean Floor, or Monster from the Ocean Floor, which in 1954, he sold the story of it and then thought, fuck you, I'll make it myself. Produced it and made the movie himself. Put himself on the map and set in motion his entire industry, the Corman industry. Make them quick, keep the folks happy, spend as little as possible, always cut back, make the film shorter, get more showings in a day, and make lots and lots of money. And that was the ethic which has supported him ever since. So, Monster from the Ocean Floor. He would also do Horror at Party Beach, and Up from the Depths, and many other movies. Plus, there is a Barbara Bach, Richard Johnson movie from a couple of years before Humanoids From The Deep, which is set on a tropical island where these adventurers end up there, and Richard Johnson, he would shortly go into Lucio Fulci's Zombie Flesh Eaters, playing a doctor making similar experiments on an island. And what this guy's doing, he's making fishmen, and it's called Island of the Fishmen. It's got various titles. Barbara Bach is the gorgeous bit of babe in it, and you've got these fishmen creatures in great costumes who are ripping up people, and yes, it's a very sort of similar idea. What's the big connection? Well, because the original Italian version of Island of the Fishmen, which is more of an adventure story than a horror story, didn't really sit well with Roger Corman, who was going to distribute it in America. He sent his guys in there to snip, take out lots of boring footage of adventure and romance, and add in gory sequences of these fish creatures killing people. So dismemberment, disemboweling takes place largely in the first sort of 15-20 minutes of the movie, but it transforms the movie into a fully fledged, full-blooded horror movie. And that, again, is very similar to this. So people going like, he just ripped off Alien. There is an Alien derivative in it, without a doubt. He ripped off Jaws. No, he didn't. How is this anything like Jaws? You've got something nasty in the water, but this something nasty in the water comes out and does most of its havoc on the land. I don't recall that 20-footer, 25. I don't recall that great white shark coming out onto the land and causing havoc. Humanoids From The Deep owes more to the likes of Nightwing, even The Car for Robert Silverstein, with the Native American aspect of it, and the ecology and prophecy. Yes, the often lamented and, has the piss ripped out of it all the time, monster movie Prophecy with Talia Shire, Robert Foxworth. Again, you have mutants, you have the ecology being disrupted by man's terrible rape of the natural world. and you have a mutant bear on the loose, causing havoc. But you have a Native American interest as well, and you have angst between redneck, bigoted racists who want the machinery and the new industry in place, who are fighting against the Native Americans who don't want this, and they're really spiritually connected and know that this is bad news. It's very similar. So the confrontation in Humanoids from the Deep, you already know they don't like the Indian. The Indian presence is limited to one guy, basically, Johnny Eagle. And we've already encountered a big fishy claw in the first few minutes, ripping up the fishing nets. And then a small child goes overboard from a ship, a trawler, gets ripped up by one of these things. You could say Alex Kintner. You could. He's not on a life raft. Get over it. And the boat, in the panic, oh, I lost my son. Kerosene spills, the boat goes up. Jaws 2, you could say, with the woman and the water skier, and she manages to pour kerosene all over herself and then fires a flare pistol. Yeah, of course these little elements are still similar. Of course they are. This is the opening of the fucking movie. Kid killed, boom, boat goes up. Next thing on the dock side, because you've already seen all these rednecks with their boats and their little sculleries, whatever you call them. Scuppers, that's it, isn't it? I don't know, I don't fish, for real. It was all fake before. All their dogs, who normally travel with them, they arrive on the docks one morning. The dogs are all dead. What the hell? But one dog isn't. And what dog is it? It's the husky owned by Johnny Eagle and Hank Slattery, Vic Morrow, with he's got one of those crazy sort of, perms, which on a white dude back in those days kind of looks a bit odd. It kind of reminds me of, is it Richard or Robert Foxworth? Richard Foxworth from Prophecy, who has got a bit of a grey afro himself. And they see that the husky dog from Johnny Eagle is still there. All our dogs, but not his. So in the little barn dance thing, which he's running to try and, look, the cannery's a good idea, folks. Come on now, let's all get together and have a bit of a hoedown. And then in a great sequence, Johnny Eagle walks in with the ripped up body of his husky dog. Now, you guys know me. I've got a husky who is just over there right now. Well, just out in the hall. So I can't even turn that around and go, there she is. But you've seen her before. I love my dogs. I love all dogs. And I hate violence to dogs in movies. Oh, God. And this film has a fair bit, because another dog as well has been slain, who's got out through the back door, gone out on the beach, a retriever, and it encounters one of these beasties, and you'll find its mangled remains lying on the beach. Oh, no. And then all these dogs are killed, and then he comes in, but the humans have killed his dog. And he just lays it down like, you, Slattery, this is down to you. So Slattery and his bully boys, take him out and give him a good beating outside. But Jimmy Hill, played by Doug McClure, who is the hero of this movie, leaps in with his younger brother. What's his younger brother called? It's here somewhere. I wrote this all down before. Oh, I don't know. His younger brother, somebody Hill, joins him as well. And they save Johnny Eagle. And there's a lot of, roundhouse, boof, and boosh, and down they go. Johnny Eagle fights back, and he's about to really do in Hank Slattery. You killed my dog. And he's about to do it. The local deputy fires a couple of shots. And he looks more Indian than anybody else, this guy. But anyway. And he's got, let's break all this up now. Come on now. And then I like the fact that most of the rest of the movie, these cast are all sporting black eyes. It takes place over a few more days, but they're all got the damage from this fracas, this fishy fracas. And Hank Slattery, Vic Morrow, will go on to cause some sabotage further up the river. He'll be lobbing dynamite. He's going to do all sorts. He's the villain of the piece. And in the meantime, these humanoids, which is why we're here in the first place, have been coming out and causing those extra scenes to be added. People camping on the beach, people making out on the beach, people just playing about in the surf. The guy will be dragged underwater. He might appear with half his face ripped off, and then the poor woman will have her bikini ripped asunder, and then this slimy creature with one wonders how they're going to procreate, because one thing that Rob Bottin's costumes don't seem to have is a device with which to do so. They may have tails, but that's not what he's using. Anyway, but you will see them get disrobed and lie amongst the sand and the seaweed, and these creatures ride on top of them. And you're like, well, you know exactly what's going on. And it's pretty grim. So all these attacks are taking place. Doug McClure. Where did he come from? How did he get Doug McClure into this movie? Well, I'll tell you how they got him. Doug McClure, of course, this is a guy that encountered the people in the land that time forgot. He went to the Earth's core, he battled the warlords of Atlantis, and he did all of that in Europe. He was the second major star in the long-running TV Western, The Virginian. And although he was the kind of good guy, but he was a bad guy, but he was good, really. Do you know what I mean? UK audiences and European audiences really took to him. So that's how he got over to the UK and started working for Amicus and making these monster movies. And then, because his name became rather large in the UK, and Corman thought, well, hang on a minute, we need a big name to distribute the movie overseas. He'd be great. He's not going to cost too much because he's not a big American star, but he's American, so we can use him, and he's also big in the Urals. So it's only anchored us again. Brilliant, bring him over. So Doug McClure, you gotta love Doug McClure. He's great. He's not the world's greatest actor. He's not, but he's very charismatic. And he's a likeable chap. And to see him in a heroic role, to see him slugging it out with rednecks and bigots and racists, you like that. He sides with, his younger brother, Johnny Eagle, and Ann Turkel. And this is the weird thing. Most of the movie has Doug McClure and Ann Turkel and Johnny Eagle battling the monsters and working out what's happening. But so you kind of think that him and Ann Turkel's Dr. Susan Drake are going to be the item. You kind of forget until the end of the movie that Doug McClure's character has got a wife back home, living in a sort of cliffside ranch house type of thing, with a young baby. She's played by Cindy Weintraub, and you forget about her until the end of the movie, which we'll come on to. But you think these two are an item. So anyway, this investigative trio, after Doug McClure's younger brother gets savage but doesn't die, but in that dynamite attack, the creatures will rise up as well, which are not seen by Vic Morrow and his band of bastards conveniently at that time. So they, all of a sudden, all the good guys realise, there's definitely some amphibious monstery taking place here. So let's go out and search the coastal areas. And they find some caves, and they go ashore, and they find a kind of nesting ground of these guys here, who rise up, and one's got the big long arms, and they cut everywhere. But in a great move, these things are indestructible. You kind of like the film for the fact that they can be killed. It's always great in a movie where, oh my god, bullets don't work on it. But in those films, people will still fire bullets, bang, 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 and throw the weapon at it. I suppose you would, but it becomes redundant and a bit silly. But in this movie, they can be killed, but their strength is in their numbers. And remember, there's only 3 that were made. So it's pretty good that, to make the film, give the film that feel that they are being marauded by so many more. As one pops up here, one pops up. Great cinematography, great choreography in the attacks as well, which gives you the impression that there's many more of these enemies than there actually is. But they're getting blasted, hunting rifles, smashed on their head, and their brains will explode. But it's great. But they will uncover one of the earlier victims, one of these earlier buxom babes, who's lying there, bedecked in seaweed. she's alive, or we'll take her back. But they also take back one of the bodies and they do an autopsy on the body. And of course, Dr. Susan Drake realises, shit, I think this is my fault. Oops. Oh, messing with the DNA to make big salmon. What this is, it's part salmon, it's part, what did he call them? Coelacanth, that little fish which was thought to be extinct for millions of years and then was found again back in the 50s or whatever it was, and it still exists and it's still thriving. That as well, and that and man, they're all combined. Oh, these things, Jesus, they're going to take over. And now they're raping women. Oh my God, what will be the next thing? And they've got big brains, so their capacity for intellect, they could take over the world. But I think they're only using a fraction of their intelligence so far. It's because they're waterlogged. You know, they're bedecked in seaweed. And seaweed is huge in this movie. Now, I said it's filmed in Northern California. It's filmed in a place called Fort Bragg. Now, that is not Fort Bragg in North Carolina, the home of the Green Berets, Special Forces. No, it's not there. This is Fort Bragg, Northern California. And I have said many, many times, and I will do again until someone actually gets me out there and gives me a house, hopefully on the cliffs with my own lighthouse as well. Port Reyes, I want to go, Bodega Bay, I want to go somewhere, Northern California, on the coast. That's what I've always wanted. The fog, the howling, the birds. So Halloween 3, so many movies are set in this region. I love it. So is this film. But Roger Corman doesn't pick the scenic places. No, he doesn't. He must have realised, hang on, if we're going to shoot new extra scenes of nudie bits, fully frontal nude women running across the beach and being savaged by these amphibian bastards, and gory bodies floating about in the water, well, we don't want other people to get involved in this. So let's go further up the coast and we'll pick the shittiest little rocky coves. The sand is black, it's volcanic. The sea is just awash with horrible seaweed. It's like the fucking Sargasso Sea. It's grim, it's grey, rainy, black. It's absolutely horrid. And that's where they film it. So you've got people in little tents who are making out. Well, you fucking go down there. It's absolutely hideous. And these things will come out and tear through the tents and rip the guy apart. And then the poor jiggly boobed woman will run up the beach like that. And then she'll run towards the camera, but she's looking that way and that way, right into the waiting arms. Whoa, the big gill man. It's great. So stupid, but so great at the same time. Gotta wet my whistle. While you admire the array. Because of course, I have a ripped up dog mask there who's attacking one of these things. That is my sort of, my homage to the pure and horrible canine carnage and fight back that these guys must have tried to do. But, so, Doug McClure, Ann Turkel, Vic Morrow, who were all great. How did he get them into this movie? Well, the script was actually called Beneath the Darkness, and it was meant to be a mystery. So that's how they lured them in. They didn't know it was going to be just pure and utter B-movie schlock, boobs and blood. They did not know that. But they don't seem to have minded either. In fact, the whole film builds up to a wondrously low-budget, high-concept climax. And this again is where the whole Jaws thing comes in, Jaws and Piranha, because you've got like a carnival, you've got the salmon festival at Noyo Bay, and they've got a woman in a bikini she's the salmon queen. They've got a radio DJ there, and it's all in the docks, and everyone's having a party, and there's merry-go-rounds and all that kind of candy floss, and there's a little ragtime band, little old men and little old ladies with little bowler hats and pinstripe suits on. In fact, I know who they are. They are called it's Amy Barrett and Joe Williams and the Whitewater Boys. That's them. Loving your work. And of course, so you've got, like Jaws on the 4th of July, and Piranha, you've got the big carnival, you've got the big summer camp thing. Yeah, you've got all that kind of stuff. But in Jaws, that's the middle section. That's the end of the mid part of the movie. The 4th of July thing where it all goes tits up for Amity, and the 3 men have to go to sea in a boat and go and take down the monster shark. And that's where this film is completely different, because the entire climax of this movie is set on land. What happens is Doug McClure, Ann Turkel, and Johnny Eagle manage to get back as this party celebration's going on, and there's Hank Slattery and all his boys, who are well liked by all the locals, and all like, hey, little Cindy, how you doing? And all that kind of shit, like, I'll win you that bed, oh, fucking hell, whatever. And they arrive in their yacht, and they throw this tarpaulin. We've got one of them, and they pull it open. This is what's been killing the dogs and killing all the people. This is what's out there now. And they're like, oh my God. As this Gillman thing is lying there. And before anyone can really react, all of a sudden, other humanoids plunge up through the deck boards of the jetty and the boardwalk, and they start pulling people under, ripping them up, chasing the women, throwing them over their shoulders. Everyone's screaming, and it's pure carnage. And it's brilliant. And again, this thing about there's only 3 of them. Well, honest to God, you are going to think they are moving en masse. It's so well done for such a low budget, low key production that it looks $1 million, you know. And they're grabbing women, they're ripping the tops off them. The Salmon Queen, she watches as the DJ who's been, making the moves on air, gets his back and his chest ripped open, his rib cage exposed. And then one of them goes after her, and in its first grab, it pulls the top of her bikini off, and then bobbling about with like massively mighty chesticles, she picks up rocks, starts bashing it on its brain, its big exposed brain. Boof, boof. So she wins. She wins. Other women are not so lucky, and other fellas get their heads ripped off in the big scene, which was always cut in the States, but was fully uncut in the UK. One guy gets his head twisted, and then his head comes off, and it walks off with his head in its amphibious claws, and it's brilliant. Some great gore in it. Like, it's quick stuff, but it's for its time. It was very splashy, very red, very nasty, and it worked a treat. So, and they realised that, oh look, they're coming about the water. Let's pour kerosene in the water and get the flare gun and ignite the water. Well, 3 little pockets of flaming water ignite. But you've got one of these bridges collapses, and people are getting dragged down. Stunt people are falling over into the water, and these things are waiting there and clawing them all up. And Hank Slattery, Vic Morrow, to try and redeem himself. Well, I mean, he doesn't try to redeem himself. He thinks he's got nothing to redeem himself for. He doesn't think his views are bad. So he climbs down, but he loves his town. He's trying to save a little girl. And of course, Johnny Eagle and these two have got a real grudge. You killed my dog. But Johnny Eagle, we're still with a black eye. They've all got black eyes and broken noses. Manages to start shooting, the creatures who are attacking Vic Morrow. The girl gets to safety. Vic Morrow's leg gets ripped up, but Johnny Eagle leaps across and gets him. And reluctantly, the two lock hands, and he pulls his nemesis to safety. And that's kind of a nice thing. This is a film where it's schlock, it's cliche, it's stereotypical, and yet you got this moment. Ordinarily in a film of this kind, Vic Morrow would be slain, and you'd go, yeah, you'd be punching the air going, yeah, fucking, you deserve that. But no, he gets saved by the guy that he hated, and they don't hug each other. No, it doesn't go that far, but you kind of, well, that's a nice touch. In a way, that's nice. So, personally, I think he should have been disemboweled, because, in fact, and raped as well, because what he did to that husky dog. So you got off lightly there, Vic. But it's a great, great movie. There's so much action. It's linear, it's tight, it's taut. That climax also shot through, intercut with another climax where you've got, remember her? You be forgiven for having forgotten she existed, but Doug McClure's wife, who's at home in that isolated little cliffside cabin with a little baby in his playpen, and the big armed humanoid is outside, lurking at the windows. Another woman is seen in the shower who is not Cindy Weintraub, because she refused to do any nudity. But this other woman is in the shower and then comes out and transforms into Doug McClure's wife. Realises we're under attack, gets a knife, looks after their kid, and slices up this last humanoid and really does a number on it in a scene which becomes reminiscent of Mrs. Peltzer fighting back against the gremlins in her kitchen, the home defence of the woman. So, you know, this is a film where women are abused and raped, but it's also a film directed by a woman, initially and primarily, I would say. But the women are strong. One of the main, you know, movers and shakers is Dr. Susan Drake, who fights. She's not a damsel in distress. She's caused it all, and she's fighting back against it. She's doing the right thing. Now she's realised. And then you've got the big chesty bits bobbling about and getting terrorised and fight. But you've got the likes of Doug McClure's missus, who fights back, puts up a strong defence, and is brilliant and looks after the kid. So it strikes that duality of pure exploitation, but also a bit of progressiveness as well. And it shouldn't work, should it? How dare they? How dare they think that far ahead and try to be more societally embracing? But they are. And it works brilliantly well. It's so entertaining. James Horner's score is great. It's a little bit derivative, but it has the solo horn and trumpet, things from like Jerry Goldsmith would use, but it's also from Leonard Rosenman's great score to the 70s remake of The Island of Dr. Moreau with Burt Lancaster and I forgot the other guy. I have forgotten the other guy completely, but it doesn't matter. But Humanoids From The Deep works so well. I've loved it. It seems like all my life. It's quick, it's cheap, but it delivers all the goods. It does exactly what you want it to do. There's no airs and graces, and yet there are some hidden subtext, some hidden allegorical elements which work. The Native American thing, which you'd see again in Wolfen as well. You'd seen it in Nightwing, you'd seen it in Prophecy, you'd seen it in The Car. And they get recognised for it. But this doesn't. Shadow of the Hawk as well as another one. And you know, these things, these are important. These are elements which make this film work and give it a lot more depth, you know. And I love it. I have a great time with this movie. And Roger Corman would do a TV remake of Piranha, and he'd do a TV remake of this in 1990. And what he would do, rather stupidly, but then again, cost cutting for him, but it proved that the film was just this film's great and the remake was shit. He just put loads of scenes of the attack scenes from the original movie into his remake, and it was just absolutely friggin' garbage. So was the remake of Piranha, the Roger Corman remake of Piranha. Of course, the big alien thing which everyone gets to is the epilogue to this, the big shock epilogue. Remember the girl who was found in the sort of seaweed encrusted den of the humanoids, and she's alive, and in a very gratuitous moment she's nude but covered in seaweed, and our heroes pull the seaweed off her breasts to expose them for a lingering shot. Nice move. And you see her because she's been impregnated by these things, and in that great shock sequence at the end, she's screaming as she's giving birth, and it's Dr. Susan Drake's there, and she goes, "Come on, you'll be alright, whatever her name is, I can't remember. You'll be alright." And this big belly with a sudden, an alien-like punch comes through, and one of these little bastards comes up, blood showers everywhere, and in a great moment, which people forget about, is that the girl herself leans forward, and her eyes have gone green, or kind of aquamarine. So is she evolving as well? With these horribly sort of watery green blue eyes. You're like, shit. And then the film ends. At the time of the film's release in the UK, Ann Turkel and Roger Corman were both saying that there's a sequel. We're going to do a sequel to Piranha, and we're doing a sequel to Piranha did happen. And of course, a certain James Cameron was involved with that, who had worked with Roger Corman beforehand as well. Piranha 2, The Spawning, garbage. But the Monster 2, because that was what they're going for, Monsters 2, or because it was known as Monster everywhere outside of the US. It never transpired. It's meant to be part of a 2-picture deal, but it never transpired. What the evolution of that would be, obviously, would be the remakes that were made, you know, for TV, but not sequels. So, but anyway, folks, Humanoids From The Deep. It's fantastic. I love it. There's a great new release in the UK. There's a great Blu-ray release in the States. I've got them all. I've got the original Betamax version there. There's a VHS version knocking around, and I love it. It's just great, good, gratuitous, nasty, amphibious, maritime, grew and gore. Good God, this is genetically modified lager. I am transforming out of a whiskey drinker into a lager lout. Watch my eyes spin in a minute. But no, recommend it wholeheartedly. It's daft, it's grisly. You've got a young James Horner, you've got a young Rob Bottin, you've got Ann Turkel, you've got Doug McClure. Doug McClure plays a guy called Jimmy Hill. Yes, Jimmy Hill. For those in the UK, he was the guy that was the pioneer of the big chin. Yeah, not Bruce Forsyth and not Bruce Campbell. It was Jimmy Hill. Yeah, Jimmy the Chin Hill. So, folks, I have been and always shall be Kilt-Man at your seafaring services. If in doubt, call the lager lout. And I'm going to see you all